Looks like it's live on Facebook and YouTube. Let me just double check. YouTube. Let me just double check. All right, well, let's just jump right into it. Looks like I've received a little reminder that we're live. So hopefully folks are starting to get alerted on their app or desktop and can join us onto the broadcast. But thank you all for tuning in, whether it's the morning and it's live right now, afternoon or evening. When you do get a chance to rewatch this, we ask that you give us a hashtag replay so we can see that you've engaged, you've tuned in. It also helps if you have questions that you had asked at a later point for us to be able to capture those questions. Of course, for those of you that are on here with us for the very first time, we want to continue to bring you back to our page. And just as a quick reminder, not only can you like our Facebook page or YouTube channel, but you can also hit the subscribe button, feature, or notification tab. That allows for any alerts that we post out, any videos or content that we make, for you to actually see that in your feed, especially with so many other connections that you have. It's easy to glaze over some of the information that we post out there. So just that quick reminder for you. And of course, you can do your part by hitting the share button on this video so others in your network can see that we're live, can also be as informed and as engaged as you are today. So there are a couple ways that you can interact with us. One of those ways is by reacting to the video with any of those emojis that you see that are available to you, the thumbs up, the angry, the, love, whichever one of those that allows us to see the name and who is engaged, so we can give you that shout out. And you can also start commenting on the video. Comments are able to be pulled onto the screen. So we'll see your profile picture, we'll see your name, and then the quick note that you've left our way. This is our number one way of interacting with you on this broadcast. So if you have comments about any of the information that our counselor is sharing, this is the way to do that. If you have questions, then we'll be able to loop them through at those pauses. So thank you, Parker, for tuning in with us, and good morning to you as well. We also have our current board chair, Brian Dice, giving a quick good morning remark to both the counselor and myself. Thank you for engaging onto our broadcast this morning. And Dave Carpenter, appreciate you for hopping on. Looks like you had a busy weekend at concerts and whatnot, so hopefully you've gotten some downtime to relax between all that as well. And then your fellow counselor, Rich Seymour, is also engaged with us this morning, giving us a nice good morning message. So a lot of folks that are on here with us. And Councilor Nurmela, thank you so much for fitting this in between the workload that you have and being a mommy and just having so many other duties. We appreciate you being on here with us. And I just want to turn this over to you. I know that you have some information you want to share, and I'll do my best to try and capture that in the chat section.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I always love coming here and being able to share what we're doing and what we're working on, what's ahead. So yeah, I hope everybody is enjoying this beautiful day. It is much better than Saturday.
No doubt.
Yeah. So get outside, because it's supposed to rain again tomorrow. So, but I do have a bunch of updates and just things that are going on in the city. And then I just wanted to give everybody some heads up on what's coming down the pike on council. And so one of the things that we have been able to do more is get out to the community with our town halls. And so our second town hall this year was held on May 3rd. And we didn't get to all of the questions because we had a great turnout. And so we have questions and answers listed on the city website. So you should be able to go to the homepage and find those Q&As. And a lot of our staff went through and answered the questions that we didn't get to answer ourselves. So definitely check that out. Another interesting thing that we've been updated on what the city is doing is that the city is looking to address tree canopy gaps throughout the city, and with a focus on overall resiliency and our urban heat island effect, as well as equity in terms of where those trees are. And so they're doing an analysis where they're working with a couple of partners, including the Nature-Based Climate Solutions, Trust for Public Land, and Masters of the Environment. Kind of sounds slightly like they need a movie. And they're over at the CU Boulder, and they're all helping us out to over the next couple of months to look at our overall tree canopy and figure out where the gaps are and how we can address those. So that's just something your city is doing behind the scenes. You should know that there is going to be a partial trail closure in Metzger Farm, and that's in collaboration with the City of Broomfield's open space team. That staff recently closed a portion of that trail for an indefinite period because there is a fox with a fox den. So a mom fox with her cubs is there, and so there's I don't know if there were interactions with dogs before, but they are concerned about interactions with dogs. And so they're just installing some signs and barricades. So if you run across that, literally, if you run across it.
That is so funny. That is, it's part of being in Colorado when you get some of that wilderness and all of that incorporated in your everyday life.
I know. Well, we have a little red fox in our neighborhood that we see often when I'm driving my kids to school. It just kind of runs alongside the car.
You know, it's just an everyday occurrence.
Yeah, it's like, get off the road, don't get hurt. Yeah, they are. There's a lot of foxes are out right now, taking care of their pups.
Yeah.
A couple of fun things that are coming up. The Westminster Police Department is working with the Arvada Police Department, and they're putting on a teen academy. And that's going to be held between June 6th and the 10th. It's for teenagers between the ages of 15 and 18. And most of the classes will be held at the Westminster Police Department. And they are still accepting, at least last week they were accepting applications. So hopefully there might be time to squeeze one in if that's of interest. I don't have a website for that, but maybe it's on our website. Sorry about that. If there is a desire, we can find it.
Yes, I will find that and pop that in. And while we're on that subject, I know Councilor Nurmela referenced the town hall that was held and some follow-up Q&As, and that link has been dropped for you. You can go directly to the City of Westminster webpage and find the remaining questions that you may have asked or maybe were wanting to hear the response on. Staff's already compiled that and put that online.
Yeah, and we had just on that note, we had a lot of common questions, a lot of our common trains of questions. Some of them were around speeding and racing through the community, which is more of a regional concern. And so those kinds of things are being addressed at a partnership scale with our other jurisdictions that neighbor us. And so there's work being done there, and there are a lot of questions around what are we doing regarding working with people who are experiencing homelessness in the community. Has a lot of different impacts, both on those of us who live in the community, our animal kingdom out in the trails and open space, and just all of our human service partners that we have working in both the counties, Adams County and Jefferson County. So there are a lot of questions and a lot of good information that you can find on there. Another interesting academy that's coming up is the 2022 Civic Engagement Academy. So if you want to learn more about how the city ticks, how it works on all different levels, from planning to city management to water and infrastructure services, this is an opportunity. It's a 2-month program, starts June 15th, and it goes through August 17th. and I may be plugging this for, another counselor, probably plugged this last week, but just reminding folks that you can apply for that. And it's 3 hours once a week. So it is a commitment of time, but it's really worthwhile to understand how the city is run. So that, I think I passed on a link already.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
I have been showing it during the entire time that you've referenced this. So for those of you that were not aware, that's what this link is. This is about the great program that Councilor Nurmela is highlighting, all things city, so you can understand how it's functioning, what goes on in the background behind the scenes, and how it really the inner workings. So if you're interested, this is the link for you to be able to apply to this program. There is time that is obviously involved in investment of your time, but I think it's overall a rewarding experience for those that are really interested in finding out those nuts and bolts.
Yeah. And if you don't have time for that, but there's still ways to interact with the city, and one of those is through I'll just plug again, Access Westminster. That's just a way to get a hold of city staff and city council to let us know what's going on in your neck of the woods, in your neighborhood, or what you're experiencing. And we do have a community input tracker that the staff, when you ask a question, staff starts tracking it and making sure that you get your question answered. And if there is anything that needs to happen as a result, then that is also tracked for us. So that's just council trying to make sure that we're being good stewards and we're being good communicators. And would love to hear as well if people have a desire to interact more with council, because we do have our town halls, we have Access Westminster, but always willing to hear how we can reach you better. Let's see, what else do I have? I wanted to give you guys an update on just the study session that we had last week. I think there were a lot of interesting items that came up. So if you haven't seen it, there are some great info items and presentations and some direction that council gave that will have an impact on just how we are run in the future. So in terms of informational items, it's actually quite interesting. The rental property maintenance code and inspection program that was started back in 1997, and it's a pretty unique program that Westminster runs, and it's focused on ensuring that our rental properties are well maintained, and that we, it's just an opportunity for us to look inside and outside of these properties and make sure that people have a safe place to live. And we started ensuring that licenses were actually in place for all of our multifamily rental units, and that started in 2010. So we are tracking, we have about 13,000 plus rental units in the community. And that's a lot of inspections. We average around 4,000 to 7,000 inspections a year. And that will increase, because right now we don't really inspect our new units, but as they get older, we do pick up the pace of how often they get inspected. So you can look into that and see, if you're interested, a lot more detail on what that program is. A good summary is the presentation slides that's on a link there. And the other thing that we were able to go over last week was, when council can look at and weigh in on developments that are occurring. My council colleagues are specifically interested in understanding when multifamily residential is being brought into the community. And so having an opportunity to weigh in earlier in the process versus right at the very end after 2 years of working with staff, then it makes a lot more sense for us to be able to see what's happening earlier than later. So that will require more projects coming into council and us being able to see and comment on them.
Yeah.
So, staff is going to be working on that, just how that will actually play out. So we don't know yet. Do you have a
And
question?
I know that we're all anxiously watching, and that was one of the discussion points that was brought up from the strategic plan that council had discussed. So to kind of see it move and put in place in motion will be interesting to kind of see it all unfold. But you're right, it is it's a lengthy process, and by the time it gets to you all, there's so much that's happened in between that, and how can you create this relationship or a stronger way of communicating. We have our mayor that's also tuned into the broadcast, Councilor Mayor McNally. It was out in the garden already enjoying the day, like you were saying. And so, good morning to you, Mayor. Thank you for engaging with us. I also see Wayne Anderson on the broadcast with us as well. So thank you for being on here. And the link to council's agenda, past meetings, and things that are coming up that Councilor Nurmela was referencing is also posted in the chat section for you to be able to follow up on or look through at your convenience.
Yeah, thank you for
Mm-hmm.
posting that. Yeah, so with respect to what it looks like for council to be able to weigh in on projects, I think one of the other elements that we have in our tool belt is our comprehensive plan. And comprehensive plan can help us decide where density goes in the community and just what our overall build out is going to look like, and understanding what that impact is to all of our services, from water to all of our other services like police and fire and our other infrastructure. So the comp plan, staff is actually going to be doing 3 different sessions with us. We had to postpone the last one that was supposed to happen last week, but they're going to be just helping provide a baseline of understanding for what does the comp plan do, what can it affect, what can we impact by making changes in the comp plan. And so we're going to have 3 different discussions about it. So look for that in the future. And one of the other things that we're going to have a series of info items is going to be the budget. So starting tonight, we have a post-brief, what do we call it? A post-briefing session. It's kind of like a study session, but after council, our regular meeting. And that's going to be focused on our just an overview of our budgeting for programming. And there are a lot of different aspects to our budget. There's programming, and then there's capital improvements, and then there's staffing. So all of those are going to get their own evening with council, and we'll be able to better understand just what do those comprise, and what are our priorities within that. That's all leading up to the budget coming in October. So that will be very informative. So again, great opportunities to learn about how we run, how the city is run. Also tonight, we have some proclamations that will be going out. We have our gun death awareness proclamation that will be highlighting a day in June, where we will be just focusing on the people that we have lost, and just hoping that we can do better as a community and supporting one another. And so that's something that we'll present tonight, as well as 3 other months of recognition for June, coming up in June. So we have National Safety Month, we have Immigrant Heritage Month, and then we have Pride Month. So a lot of good stuff to just focus on our community and who we are and how we keep each other safe and valued. Let's see, I'm trying to think if there's another really, I think, for us, it's very interesting for us. So we have the Semper Rehabilitation Evaluation Criteria. That's a big mouthful. It's essentially, we are looking at our, again, as we look at our water infrastructure and what our next steps are in enhancing and expanding our ability to process water in the community. We're looking at the Semper property, the Semper water treatment plant, and seeing with this analysis, what can we do on that site in terms of rehabilitating it and expanding what it's able to do. And with that, we have evaluation criteria that are going to be from overall risk and safety to, how does this work out financially? So those criteria we'll be going over this evening, because that will help set a baseline for how we make our decisions in the future. about that property. So, yeah, that's.
Yeah, of course, that was a lot. That was a
I
lot of
know.
information. I'm gonna go ahead and give you a pause so you could just take a breather. And I've done my best to try and capture some of that from comp plan discussion to some of the intros around the budget and the nuances to that, to proclamations that will be handled this evening at City Council's meeting, and so many other details that we've had Councilor Nurmela going over today with us. So if you are just now hopping onto the broadcast with us, we do try and bring in our mayor pro tem, our councilors on here on a weekly basis to give us updates. And we have Councilor Nurmela. We had a break. So last week we did not have a councilor. So you are actually giving us so much great information by capturing last week and then this tonight and then what's on the horizon, believe it or not. So you're doing excellent. We do have a question that's come in, and this question has come into us from our board chair, Brian. Brian's asking in regard to an event that the city, actually the city's police department is the one that generally handles this event. And so he's curious. There's a shred-a-thon that happens every year and allows for a certain number of pounds that you can bring to get shredded at City Hall. And so that event was to take place last week, and it looks like it has been postponed. He's curious if you've heard any rumblings or discussions around this.
I know it came up from another community member as well, and I don't yet see it on our calendar, but maybe I missed it, so I may defer to. I know Councilor Seymour and the mayor are online if they know, if I may have missed when the rescheduled date was.
And in the meantime, as if our mayor or Councilor Seymour do know and can chime in, excellent. If not, what we'll go ahead and reference is the same link that we referenced a little bit earlier when we discussed the Teen Academy that's in partnership with the West D PD and Arvada PD that'll be held over at the West D Safety Center. But that link, it directly takes you to the police department's page. It actually does show you upcoming events that the department has and activity that they have going on, all the way to, hiring and et cetera. So that is likely where they will be posting when the new date is rescheduled and reset. So if we don't know right now, know that that's where you would be going for it. And we'll do our best, as with any of these questions, to try and get back to you at a later point if it's not right on hand for us like this. So great question, Brian. It looks like our Mayor McNally sharing that it was double booked by those that were organizing it, which makes it a little bit hard to run a couple of things to that that level and that detail that's there. So they are looking and hope to have it in October. And according to Councilor Seymour, that'll likely be rescheduled to October the 8th. So hold on to your items that you want shredded. Don't toss them in the regular bins or trash. Just keep them off until the side until October. And the days fly by, so it won't feel like too long by the time that date rolls around.
I hope not. My daughter starts high school this year, so I'm like,
oh yeah.
wait.
Yeah, I know. It is. It's crazy. These days are just like you blink it and like 2 months have passed and you're like, I don't understand what's going on.
Yes. Yeah.
Last
day of school for kids this week. I don't know what's going on when Jeffco is, but Adams County is out this week. So
we had some graduations, I believe, last week, Red Rocks and some of those others.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a busy time for those that have kids or those that are graduating out from college and entering our workforce or entering another phase in their life. So very exciting moments for sure. I don't have any additional questions, but if you are on here with us and you did have a question, it doesn't have to be as detailed as Brian's about a particular event that was rescheduled. It could just be broadly or things that you were hoping to ask us or ask the counselor specifically. You can type that into the chat for us to get to. And of course, if you are watching this and we are no longer live, know that you can always type us a question, even if it's later, for us to be able to get handled and addressed. We did reference Access Westminster, which is the website that Councilor Nurmela was discussing. That's where you can find a lot of kind of the FAQs and see what's going on in the community and even ask some direct questions to councilors, City Hall and staff. So know that that is a resource and that you're not just time constrained to our 30-minute window today. So with that, I don't have any other questions that are my way or that I see. Councilor, were there any other remarks that you wanted to share our way?
I just have a question for the Westy Chamber, and I'm just kind of curious to hear how it's going with getting employees and hiring, and just kind of how are things going. I know there's some significant inflation, so I'm just what are the businesses
What
feeling?
are they seeing?
Mm,
Businesses that are not necessary. Like, I hate to even use that word, right? But more of like your leisure or like the extra disposable income and spending. I think those are still hurting from that position. People are out there and are shopping, and you see it even in larger places like Costco and some of those. But stocks are actually down on them, and the spending is down on them. So what we're seeing isn't actually reflected in a lot of the sales or a lot of the revenue that's going to those businesses. We've seen a few businesses that have closed during this time. They've closed even after COVID. It kind of, they were holding
mm,
on as best as possible, and still were not recovering as quickly as they necessarily could. And workforce is still a challenge. It's still a challenge for public sector, for private sector. We are, and I think everyone has touched on this, we're in that age of people are choosing where they want to work, and they don't necessarily want the traditional office job that's an 8 to 5, or the erratic schedule that you might have with some of those service type of businesses, longer hours, or throughout your evenings and such. So
mm,
I think we'll hit this. There'll be a point where we hit that they can't necessarily have that selectivity, and I've deemed it as like the age of credit cards, right? Like when those fill up and you can't really do much more with that. I think we'll see a lot of that. Backfill into those positions that we have. So from our lens, we've also rebooted a lot of our programming. We had a lot of folks that were interested in getting back to seeing one another and getting back to an in-person. So we've re-engaged a lot of our social activities on a monthly basis. We've of course kept up with the legislative session, which just concluded a little less than 2 weeks ago.
mm.
And there were some hot items. As you know, Counselor, you reached out to us during session to ask about a number of bills that were out there and what our position is as a chamber. I can never make advocacies or bills just sound so exciting to every single person. But if nothing else, COVID taught us that that does affect your business and your ability to function and operate. So
Mhm.
we've continued to be engaged in those coalitions, testifying as necessary, and leveraging those that are elected at city level, county, and even state and beyond. So even though our state legislative session has concluded, we still are engaged on the national front, and we'll have a lot of forums that are planned out since state and county positions are up this fall. So we've stayed pretty consistently busy. We'll be submitting some things for consideration as the conversation around comp plan comes up. I know that was a
Mhm.
huge one that we
Yeah.
pushed to encourage you all to review and take a look at during the strategic session. So we'll be engaged on that front, engaged with the budget process as well. But it continues to be a busy time. It's a uniquely busy time, I feel like, for everyone.
Well, thank you. That's
Yeah. A lot going on, a lot of good
yeah.
things, a lot of, dusting off the cobwebs on other things. And you're like, I shouldn't be this rusty on this just because I haven't done it in a couple of years. But it is what it is. We've grown in staff. We have Jamie. She is awesome, and she's helping in connection with our community and outreach. And then we actually have the West DPD is partnering on our event this summer. So our Mutts and Struts event on June the 11th is exactly what it sounds like. You bring your furry friend and your family for a mile or 2 mile run or walk. We host that over with our Highland Hills partners at Carol Butts Park, and West EPD is bringing out some touch-it trucks for us, and there'll be food trucks. It's a free event to the public to come out to, and of course, engage with different vendors, whether it's animal vendors or just kind of health-friendly focused vendors that are there. So great time out in the community and supporting those local businesses.
Yeah, if only I could get my cats on a leash.
Yes, totally. I know I had someone ask me that. I think it was last year. I was like, yeah, it's any furry friend. Like I do not discriminate. And if you don't have one, you can walk off with one home. We generally have rescues on site, and
Yeah.
one of them will, warm your heart, and you can't say no when your kiddo is the one that's like, please, please, please get me that. You can deal with the aftermath. I just give it to you. Right.
Yeah, yeah, we have our COVID cats.
Oh my goodness, right? Well, I'm glad you've held on to them. That was a big, that's been a big concern in our animal community
Yeah.
even as well. As a number of people did go out and find some some of those creatures to keep them warm and fuzzy and keep them entertained and socialized. And now that life's kind of happening back, they return them. So we don't want that. Let's try and rehome them if possible, and find ways to support those fur babies that give us the love when we need it unconditionally.
Right. Yeah. Keep your pets.
I know. Please keep your pets. Don't give them back. But I think I have run us over with my commentary. I appreciate you, Councilor Nurmela, for asking that question, for having a voice for our businesses as well, and continuing to seek some feedback from us on different issues that come up. We enjoy this opportunity to hear from you, and of course engage with you as frequently as we can, virtually and hopefully in person more often, as things go to a more smoother sailing.
Yeah. Come join us tonight.
Thank you. I know. I'll be tuned in from the comfort of my home, as many of you can.
That's the best part.
Yes, that is the best part.
Well, thank you for having me, Julia.
Of course. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Right, you too.